Once a cop, let it knock, yeah. I for one thing we should celebrate redemption instead of condemning it. Corey Pegues, up, talking truth, bruh. Check it out. Once a cop.
Pull up a seat. You're now in Corey's Corner, where right conversations matter. I'm your host, Corey Pegues, and I always keep it right, not real. Today's guest is Gian Jones, a respected business executive, real estate investor, and longtime public servant whose career has been driven by leadership, economic development, and community empowerment. As the founder and president of Candid Companies, Gian has spent more than 25 years in finance and real estate, overseeing more than $500 million in real estate transactions, acquisitions, and debt restructuring while helping businesses and neighborhoods grow. But his story begins long before the boardroom. Raised by a single mother as the oldest of 3 children, Gian learned the values of hard work, accountability, and perseverance at an early age. Those principles inspired a lifetime of public service, from volunteering in his community and working on political campaigns as a teenager to serving on community boards, hospital advisory councils, and economic development organizations across New York. Most recently, Gian stepped into the political spotlight as a candidate for Congress, bringing his experience in business and community leadership to the national conversation. Today, we'll discuss his journey, the lessons learned from his business and politics, the future of Long Island, and what leadership truly looks like in today's America. Please help me welcome to Corey's Corner, Gian Jones. My brother.
My man.
Got you here, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Finally. Been talking about it for a minute, but we got you here.
Quite a minute.
This episode of Corey's Corner is brought to you by Vodka. Vodka is the world's first premium blend of vodka and tequila infused into one smooth, unforgettable spirit. Whether you're celebrating success or unwinding after a long week, choose the spirit that's refined in the game. Visit vodka.net for more. Shout out to Corrupt Mob MC, a brotherhood built on loyalty, respect, and community. More than just a motorcycle club. Respect the mob. My brother, let's get into it.
Let's go, brother.
It's a long journey, man. We finally got you here. Let's talk about starting off where you're from. Where you was raised at.
Yeah, Corey, I was born and raised in Far Rockaway, Queens.
The Rock?
The Rock.
Okay.
Yes, sir. The Rock. St. John's Hospital, 1977.
Okay. Fun fact, when I was a cop,
Yeah.
and we would make a lot of money, we had second jobs. I was a security guard at OV.
I grew up in OV.
You grew up in Ocean Village?
Building 2. Yeah, bro.
I said, that security booth?
I know it very well.
I was there.
I had to meet you then. I was a
Well,
kid.
this was you talking.
What year?
This is the late 90s.
Late 90s.
Or
Yeah.
mid 90s.
Mid
to late 90s.
I was there.
But you wouldn't have seen me because I never came out the booth. They be knocking on.
You sat behind the desk.
What? They used to be
Of
like,
course.
yo, something going on. I'd be
Yeah.
like this, like, yo, I'm here for the check.
Yeah,
Call 911. I'm
Yeah.
not coming out this booth. It's Far Rocky.
Yeah, it was
man.
rough. It was rough back in the day.
Yeah.
It's gone through a massive transformation, and but yeah, growing up was, I can't say it was hard, but it had its rough moments.
Yeah. Well, when we grow up in the city, people from the outside say it's rough. We on the inside, we live in it. It's like it's everyday life. We don't even see that. Y'all say it's rough. What's
Every day. I tell you, in retrospect, when I living in Long Island now, and I look back to growing up in Rockaway, and Rockaway is completely different now today.
Right.
It's more developed. It's developers, especially after Sandy. Rockaway got put on the map. It was a bad and good thing at the same time. But when I grew up, all the places that have been developed were barren lands.
Right.
From the train to the beach. It was just barren lands. But I wouldn't change it for the world. Being from the Rock comes with its own unique respect and pride. Has many names, the 53rd state, the 6th borough, many names. But when you see people from Rockaway, anywhere in the world, you just stop. It's you're from the Rock,
right?
It's because you had to be out there to understand what that meant.
Yeah, I got a couple of couple of famous friends from The Rock.
Yeah,
Marquand
yeah.
Smith, who created The Godfather of Harlem, and legendary
I
rapper.
didn't know Marquand was from The Rock.
Marquand is from The Rock.
I did not know that.
Yes, he's from The Rock.
What? I did not know that.
Yes, he's from The
Okay.
Rock. His, not to put his business out there,
no,
but
no.
some close family members still live out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, a lot of us come from The Rock.
And legendary rapper Father MC.
Yes. I know
Yeah,
Father MC.
I just went on tour with him
Okay.
in Detroit. Yeah, good guys, Far Rock. Okay, you often talk about being raised by a single mother, like myself, later on in my life, and helping raise your younger siblings. Looking back now, what was the hardest lesson you learned during those years that still influence every major decision you make today?
You know, Corey, it goes back to what you said. It was everyday life. I don't think there was a hard decision because it was all we knew. It wasn't like we had, we weren't coming from the Upper East Side to Far Rockaway. We grew up in Far Rockaway. It was normal for us. And unfortunately, in the black community, so many people experience single-parent households with siblings, and you chip in. It's expected, and you chip in and you help mom.
I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people say that. So let me give you pushback
go for
on
it.
that. Is that a myth, or you really believe that's the truth?
It's the truth of whoever lives it.
That's a good answer. That's a good answer.
It's the truth whoever lives it.
Okay. No, because we often see people are always saying, "Oh, single." The black family. I know a bunch of white people, single mothers. I definitely know a bunch of Hispanics, single mothers, and so on and so forth. So, I would really like to see a real drill down, analytical statistical report to show that, because
we
it's
can
just
get
like,
into this when we hit politics, because this is a personal reflection right now, and I think, look, my mother did an amazing job. She also had the help of my grandmother, the late Reverend Ruby Lee Jones. I had two uncles. So we didn't feel like anything was missing.
Right.
We went to the beach every summer. We never missed a meal. We always had a roof overhead. In retrospect, now talking to my mom, I realized how challenging it was for her to do all of that for three kids, right?
She's trying to make that
But
happen.
she made it look easy.
That's right.
Right? But look, black people have been overcoming adversities for years.
Beginning
Right?
of time.
And
Especially black women.
especially black women, but like, there were friends who would come over and she wouldn't even ask if they ate. She would just say, sit down and eat. So she knew they would go home fed.
Right.
And today, as an adult, when I speak to friends from Rockaway and I hear how they grew up, that it was completely unbeknownst to me then.
Right.
I would say to myself, man, that makes sense why you would come to school in a T-shirt and who knew what you were going through?
Exactly.
So, and I've heard some stories recently that made me reflect back on my years at junior high school and as a young person, and like, man, like you had it rough. I can't say we had it rough. We didn't have everything we wanted, but we had everything we needed.
Right.
And I had a good childhood. I love being from Rockaway. I love what Rockaway has become, and there's two Rockaways today, but I love what it's become. I wish that the development had happened while I was there, because maybe I would have stayed there. Although I do love Long Island now.
Yeah.
But it shaped who I was. It got me involved in politics. It's where I met Greg Meeks and all the others. And
hold that thought.
okay,
You worked on campaigns for political figures like Gregory Meeks, David Dinkins, Mario Cuomo, Charles Schumer, or Chuck Schumer, Hillary Clinton. After seeing politics from inside for more than 3 decades, what's one thing the public believes about politics that simply isn't true?
Politics, as it plays out on TV or in the news media, is never what it is. Whatever's happening behind the scenes never makes it on TV. And I can tell you a quick story about that. Now Congressman Greg Meeks, when he ran for the state assembly, when he ran for city council, lost, subsequently ran for the state assembly and won. You fast forward a little bit in that part of his life. To Greg's benefit, he would carry me around with him whenever possible. And I remember one day on election night, Carl McCall's election was up for state comptroller, which he won. And I drive into the city with him on a school night. Well, it wasn't school, but the next day was school. And, Greg is in a huddle with Carl McCall, the gentleman who used to be on New York One. What's the brother who used to be on New York One? Dominic Carter. Mario Cuomo had come over, Dave Dinkins, and some Wall Street folks. And they said A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And Dominic came over and said, hey, guys, what are we going with? And they said, you're going to go with X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3. And Greg looks at me and says, this stays with us. Right. This is the first rule in politics, is trust.
Right.
And Corey, that's when I was big. I said, I got to be in this big, because it impacts all of us.
Right.
Those decisions impacts all of us. Now, what oftentimes people don't understand is that elected officials, certainly good elected officials who really do have the community's interest at heart, have to make hard decisions all the time.
Right.
There's no zero sum total, right? So in that scenario, again, reflecting back as an adult, a decision had to be made, a political decision had to be made, and how messaging was crafted, what have you, and it went out the way it needed to be expressed.
Right.
But what was really happening never was discussed in public. And so that happens all the time. It happens all the time. I mean, I'd say my crowning achievement in politics was really working for Hillary Clinton. I'm just a guy from Far Rockaway, but, to be working for Secretary Clinton when she was the first lady, running as a candidate for the U.S. Senate in New York, was mind-blowing. Because I had candidate access. I was on the advance team. And as the campaign staff got to trust me, the Secret Service, when they, the details rotated, but, every couple of weeks, I would become familiar with those agents, and they would become familiar with me, and then you realize that the Secret Service guys are just regular guys too, right?
Yeah.
And so I tell you, there was one day we went to a series of events, and then we ended up in Chappaqua at her house, and I was in her backyard, and Hillary was just on the kitchen with her hands in her face, exhausted. I remember just looking at her through her window, and then within 30 seconds, a Secret Service guy puts his hand on my shoulders. He walked up to me like a ninja. I didn't even hear him walking up to me.
Right.
But that whole experience was just like, wow. Like, I'm a kid from Far Rockaway. Like, who would think that I would be working and for Hillary Clinton and being in her house?
Right.
And I say to all young people, whenever I get a chance, you have to get involved. You never know where it takes you. And again, giving Congressman Meeks all of the flowers. I mean, Greg took me around. He put me in rooms. He exposed me. And I will forever be grateful for him for that, because that exposure and that access to power, real power, like, when do children see that? When do kids see that?
Everything is about exposure. If you're not exposed, you can't get to the bag or the power. So you said that meeting kind of gave you a little bug, but when did you finally really say? Was there one incident that said, nah, it's my turn?
I've never been a my turn kind of guy. That is the political, particularly in the Democratic Party. I mean, I guess in both parties. That's really the mantra that people have gone through over the last, for as long as we can remember. But what you're seeing now is younger electeds and want to be electeds are just saying, we're not going on the my turn system. We're going to run because we're just the best candidate.
Yes.
And so I think
it used to be a pecking order.
It used to be very much so.
Right.
Very much so. And if you step
like
out of the pecking order, you got problems.
Exactly.
I would say, I took a break from politics for a while to kind of discover my business interests, go back to school, but really to discover my business interests, because politics and business intersect all the time. This country is a country made for business, right? It's so, but I took some time out from politics to go to school. I went to NYU, graduated with a degree in real estate, got into real estate, Corey, really just to make extra money.
Right.
And, I was going to go to law school, but I would say by the time I was 23, I had made more money than my mother and father combined that year.
Right.
On one transaction.
Yeah.
And my mentor, who I was working with, said, "Oh, you're done. You're never getting a job. Like when you make this kind of money, how do you go get a job?"
Right.
And so I've always been entrepreneurial. I've never had a quote unquote job per se, but that has also shaped my view on economic development, on what needs to be happening in communities, home ownership, home development. Because I stayed in real estate, right? And I saw the disparities that's happening. You see the disparities in our communities versus other communities, right? Where we get less resources versus other communities that get more resources. And that's also connected to voting. But I also wanted to make money. And I remember Greg called me one day and said, "Hey, man, listen, I need you to finish school and I want to get you lined up. And when I move on, I want you to run for the assembly." And I said, "Greg, man, I'm not ready to go to school yet. I want to make this money."
Right.
And, he respected it, but he moved on.
Let me ask you, what do you believe the political establishment has gotten fundamentally wrong right now?
Right now, I would say the establishment does a horrible job of cultivating new talent. Horrible job. All too often, and we've known this for decades. All too often, people on both sides of the aisle get into office and they treat the office as if it's their personal belonging. And it's not. It belongs to the people.
Yes.
Right? And they don't let it go. And they count on low voter turnout, right? They count on being able to engineer that vote for themselves. And I don't have a problem with that so long as those persons are doing the job. Where it goes left is when you have elected officials and parties, Democrat and Republican, the two majors, when you have people in office that just shouldn't be in office. They've either expired their usefulness, they don't have an interest in it anymore, they haven't developed the skills to move on, they're addicted to the power, the access, the money. So at some point, you have to say to yourself, I need to start cultivating this new talent. And it's a double-edged sword, right? Because the talent has to also say to themselves, young people have to say to themselves, I'm gonna stay in the pocket of XYZ elected official to learn this position inside and out, so that eventually when they leave, I can step into it. Not like what most staffers do. They get the knowledge and then they go to lobbying firms. They go make the money, right? But we have to do a good job, much better job at cultivating and keeping talent in-house, so that and people have to leave, right? At some point, people have to leave. And
they pushing people in wheelchairs in Congress,
and that's crazy,
nuts.
And that's bananas.
They can't even talk.
Yeah, that's bananas. At a certain point, it's incumbent upon leadership to say, "Hey, man, you
time to go.
You're just not useful anymore, right?" Like, it is what it is, because it's also not reflective of the populace.
Right.
And people want to see representatives that reflect them.
Exactly.
Not the people, not the
Four
baby
generations
boomers.
ago.
Yeah,
Exactly. So this question I really wanted to ask you. You've overseen over more than $500 million in transactions. If Congress said to you right now, write one piece of legislation to make home ownership attainable again, what would it include?
That's an interesting question, because I think about that as it pertains to the private markets. I would if I had to create one piece of legislation to create truly affordable home ownership, be it homes, condos, etc. I would probably create legislation housed at HUD, like many of the HUD programs that support multi-family apartments and hotels, etc. I would probably do a program housed at HUD that would provide inexpensive capital to build housing, because that is what drives the price of homes up, the price of land, the price of materials, the price of labor, right?
Yeah.
Particularly in the Northeast. But you're starting to see that trend move upward in Atlanta, parts of Texas. These hotbeds where people have all moved to after COVID, right? So we need to make that capital, or subsidize that capital in either low interest rates where developers can come in and say, all right, we're going to build and we're going to get a loan at 3% or 4%, and it makes sense, right? And now we can sell these homes at a number.
Are we going to get back to those numbers?
See, no, those numbers are not for the end buyer. Those numbers have to be for the developers.
Oh, for the developers.
Right? Because the developers are basically saying, if I'm going out and borrowing capital at 6 and 7%, what am I selling this for, right?
Right. And
the problem is there's people who want to buy homes. There's families that want to buy homes. Look, we have that problem right here in Long Island.
Yeah.
But they can't afford. What young couples going out and buying $1.2 million house? And it's not a mansion. It's 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms.
50 by 100.
That's it. Where you going with that? And then taxes, $20,000, right? Where you go? How you support that?
It's insane.
You can't support that. So you have to spur development by creating inexpensive capital portals, primarily sponsored by the government, that say to established developers, we will, loan you X amount of dollars at 4%, 3%, whatever, in exchange for you selling that house for an affordable property, and you can tie the affordability to the AMI of the neighborhood, because what you buy a house for in, say, Texas or Florida. Well, Florida's probably crazy, but like, let's say North Carolina,
right?
It's not going to be the same as you buy in New York, right?
Right.
So, but it has to happen from the federal government. It has to be bipartisan, because people, black, white, Chinese, Asian, we all need housing.
Right.
It's the number one expense, and more people are being priced out of housing. The other thing I would also say, I just want to add this to it, Corey, and Donald Trump did this, which I don't give him a lot of credit, but he did do this. He prevented by executive order the ability for private equity and hedge funds to buy single-family homes in bulk for rental purposes, right? Okay. You have a company, a private equity firm or a hedge fund that can come in and can say, all right, we're going to spend $50 billion and we're going to buy 30,000 homes. Well, what does that do for the regular person? What does that do? You can't compete with that.
Right.
And the irony in all of that is, at the end of the day, the money that they use to buy is the money that they probably got from that buyer's pension fund.
That's right.
That's the crazy cycle of it all, right?
Yeah.
So, but let me tie it back to the end before you go to your next question. That's why voting is important. Because elected officials would not allow this foolishness if we were more engaged as a country, right? If you were calling your congressman, your senator, and saying, what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
They would say, whoa.
Right.
Now, we'll get into the whole financing of campaigns, a whole nother thing. But elected officials have to be for the people. And I'm not saying they don't support businesses, because obviously these people are writing checks. But when you're elected, you work for the people.
Right.
Period.
You was just talking about how, we live on Long Island and people are priced out. And that was actually my next questions. What's your message to a teacher, police officer, or nurse who's considering leaving New York? Because many of these young people, especially in Long Island, they're leaving because they can't afford to stay.
Yeah, my message would be stay a little longer and get in a good fight. This can all change from voter and political engagement, right? The less people you have, the less engaged population you have. But we need all the people, and we need black people, we need white people, we need the cops, we need the fire department, we need the teachers. We need all people to be engaged. Here in Long Island, particularly in Nassau County, we have Tom Swazi representing the 3rd, we have Laura Gillen representing the 4th. We need to be bombarding their offices with calls and emails so they get a clear picture. Oh, I got 13 or 14 or 15,000 communications that said this.
Right.
And then if they go against what the people are saying, then you vote them out.
Right.
You vote. The great thing about Congress is that they're up for that seat every 2 years. So every 2 years, they're coming for another interview to say, can I stay? And if you don't do the job, we as voters can't become apoplectic about it. We have to say, no, you didn't do your job. You got to go.
That's right.
So now, Corey, there's a whole machine of politics, but we can get into that another. But like people have to be engaged to create the difference that they want.
You have to be engaged. If you're not engaged, voting has consequences.
It does.
So I know that. Now, many people believe regulations protect consumers, while businesses owners say they're being strangled by regulations. Mm-hmm. Where do you draw the line between protecting the public and over-regulating businesses?
So I don't believe that we should be over-regulating businesses. New York, in particular, over-regulates, in my opinion, small businesses. It's just too much regulation. Mm-hmm. It's something that I would drive home, but especially, if elected in the future, it's something that I would drive home to the governor.
When elected,
let's put it into the universe. When elected, it's something that I would drive home locally with the governor and the Assembly and the Senate to move back some of the regulations at the state level and more locally here in Nassau, because we do have too much regulation. It's hard. Look, it's hard enough for businesses to make a buck, and everyone thinks you're a business owner. You got all the money, but they don't take into account the rent, the lights, the payroll, the insurance. Insurance is crazy right now.
Yeah, I had a restaurant for 8 years. I know.
You know, right? No one takes into account the expenses that it takes, right? And you want to support businesses because businesses support the labor market, right? We all are connected and we all need each other. So yeah, I'm not in favor of over-regulating businesses. I'm in favor of common sense regulation.
You describe yourself as a pro-business Democrat.
Yep.
What does that actually mean in today's Democratic Party? And have you ever been criticized by your own party for being too moderate?
Of course I have. What I like to say is I tend to be more liberal on social issues, and I tend to be more conservative on financial issues, right? Okay. I think, and as a pro-business Democrat, I obviously support small businesses here in Nassau and the boroughs and generally speaking in the country, because small businesses are the backbone of this country. So yeah, I'm going to always support small businesses. I'm going to always advocate for small businesses, not at the expense of the consumer, but in partnership with the consumer, right? Some people in my own party have called me, Republican light. Listen, you put yourself out to run, you're going to be exposed to all kinds of criticism.
Right.
And I wear it. It's fine, no big deal. Where I'm a Democrat is you can marry who you want to marry. You can live your life as you want to live your life, right? I'm not a religious zealot or, fanatical. I'm just, listen, live and let live. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to financial stuff, particularly in our communities, and I'll give you a quick example, the transition from Hempstead to Garden City always baffles my mind, right? Always baffles my mind.
Yes.
Because it's so sudden and stark. And what's amazing is that the Hempstead stuff never spills over. It's like this invisible dog line. It just never spills over.
Never.
And it always fascinates me. But what I would like to see, and what really should be happening already, is that corridor down Franklin Avenue should just be a continuation from Franklin out of Garden City, right? Mm-hmm. That's a lack of leadership. Mm-hmm. Because Hempstead makes the money. Hempstead has the money. Mm-hmm. Nassau County has a $4.4 billion budget. So it's a lack of leadership, and it's probably a sentiment of we don't care about them, right? That won't happen on my watch.
I love it. You say politics shouldn't be about party labels. Tell me one issue where you disagree with Democrats and one where you disagree with Republicans.
Well, I disagree with Republicans on governing how people should live their life, right? That's why I'm a Democrat.
Okay.
I believe that you can believe in God and still live a very liberal life, right? Mm-hmm. To say that, God, who is, as we've been taught, an all-loving God, is going to condemn you because you decide to do whatever, is crazy to me, right? Again, if you stay in sort of this Christian mantra, Jesus died for our sins, right? So we're sinful people, right? Right. So that's where I'm a Democrat. That's where I disagree with Republicans. And there's a whole host of things with Democrats that I disagree with. Just Democrats, right? This is the Democratic Party.
What's going on with your party right now?
Man, it's all messed up, Corey. This party is all messed up. We got a lot of chiefs, not a lot of the Indians. And I think, unfortunately, we have become, and these last few elections have shown, we've become too elitist, and it's hurt us.
Hi, I'm Queensboro President Donovan Richards Jr. Check out Corey's Corner on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple's podcast.
Okay. Again, every politician talks about accountability. Tell us about a professional failure or bad decisions you've made. What happened and what it taught you about leadership?
So, several years ago, while sort of deep in the real estate and finance industry, I made a decision to help a young brother purchase a property who, unbeknownst to me, was involved in an international money laundering scheme. And I won't get into all the details, but what I'll say is that when that process was finished, I found myself faced with a charge from the federal government, conspiracy to commit bank fraud, for trying to help somebody. Right? And it was the most bizarre event that I had ever gone through. And it taught me you can never take anyone for granted. Anyone. Could be your best friend. You don't know what they're doing.
Exactly.
Right?
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify, right? Ronald Reagan. And it also taught me that a healthy dose of skepticism is always good. It just keeps you sharp, right?
Exactly.
So, I went through a lot of anger. I was subsequently convicted, 5 months imprisonment, 2 years of probation, and this was 20 years ago.
Right.
But that stain, that monkey is always going to be on my back. Right. And for the first 3 years when I came home, I was very angry, rightfully so. I hadn't committed bank fraud, or I haven't even conspired to commit bank fraud. But it also taught me a lot about our legal system. And, I would never forget this, Corey. I was at the U.S. Attorney's office in Newark, and the Secret Service agent came over and whispered to me. He said, "Listen, man, you're getting the short end of the stick, because our justice system is what it is. Like, we know you didn't do this,
Right.
but the loss was taken on your account,
Right.
So that's the lesson that came out for me, right? You always trust but verify. You always keep a healthy dose of skepticism, because you don't really know what people are doing when they you just don't know. You don't know, right?
You don't know.
And so, I've managed to, still function and have trust for people, etc. But, if I'm not in control of certain things, I keep my distance from it appropriately, right? But that was a very important lesson for me, because I operated purely on trust and really my naivete. I was naive, right? But this guy was a bad guy. He was wanted for stealing $5 million. He had a tail on him from the Secret Service that traveled from here to Africa and back. And they ultimately caught him, and they ultimately caught the gentleman who was producing the counterfeit checks, and those guys went away for a couple years. But I would say that was probably my most significant lack of judgment and being thorough. And I learned from that, and it's a lesson that just stays with me.
I appreciate that honesty, and look where you are now.
Thank you,
Obviously,
brother.
you learned from that lesson. Now, Congress has become increasingly polarized. I don't even want to look at. Let me just tell you this. I tell people all the time, if somebody moved to America today, watch CNN, MSNBC, Fox, their head will be spinning.
100%.
You don't even know who's telling the truth because they all sound good.
100%.
Everybody
100%.
sounds good.
They all sound convincing.
They all sound
100%.
convincing. It's insane. What's one issue where Democrats need to stop talking and start compromising? That's one. And where should Republicans do the same? Before they used to,
It used to be business.
McCain,
Yeah, it
pushed
just-
Joe Biden, pushed in Congress, they would make deals. Now,
I'm going to answer the question, but I'm going to talk about what you're talking about. The days of Chip O'Neill and what have you. Like, we have lost decorum and a sense of statehood in Congress, right? We are living on a 24-hour news cycle. We are living in who can raise the most money, who can send out the most messaging, and who's suffering while all this is happening.
the little people.
Us, right? So, and if you think about it, Corey, it's what also creates the disenfranchisement from people. Like it says, I don't want to be part of this. When the opposite should be happening. You should be saying, no, we need to get involved and get these crazy people out of office on both sides. But to answer your question, I would say the most significant thing right now that Democrats and Republicans need to compromise on is on health care, right? With the expiration of Obamacare, you have millions of Americans suffering right now in shock.
I think it was 17 million, something like that.
Right? And going up, And if you pause for a minute and think about this country, one of the wealthiest countries in the world, a superpower, who does not provide health care to their residents, to their citizens, is bananas. It's bananas. Every other developed country is providing health care. Now, it may not be the best, but I'll tell you a story. I was in Paris in March. I finished up my master's, and I was in Paris. And I was talking to a neurosurgeon at a cigar lounge. And I said, oh, man, you're a neurosurgeon. You're doing great in life. And he goes, I make a decent living. And I said, but I'm coming from an American perspective, right? And I said, what do you mean you make a decent perspective? You're a neurosurgeon. You're in the brain, right?
Exactly.
And he says, we have socialized medicine here. Everyone is entitled to medicine here, right? So I do okay, but I'm not rich. But I do okay. And in that conversation, it made me pause to think to myself, man, even medicine is capitalistic in America.
Yes.
Even medicine, right? There's really no value for the citizens' lives if you can't pay, right? And that's criminal. That's just criminal, right? So I think that's the single issue right now where Republicans and Democrats need to put their differences aside, their egos, etc., and fund Medicaid or Medicare or some Obamacare, whatever you want to call it, for all Americans.
Yeah, it's crazy to me how we just go right next door to Canada.
Yeah, 100%.
Free. Cuba, like third world countries are taking care. They got some of the best doctors.
Some of the
Colombia.
best. Turkey. Turkey. You can go get a whole medical procedure done for $1,200.
Yes, I know people that fly to Turkey.
I'm about to go
to do physicals.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
And Corey, we have some of the best talent right here.
Yeah.
But and look, on the other side of that quarter is the doctors and hospitals are plagued with these crazy high insurance for malpractice. We happen to be a very litigious society. Again, this is all, spawns of capitalism. Everyone is always trying to get to the bag.
Everybody's getting to the bag.
Right?
It's American way. Now, you watch politics evolve since the Dinkins era. Has politics become more about serving communities, or has it become more about branding, social media?
That's a real question,
and
Corey.
fundraising?
That's a real question. You know that
the producers who write the questions.
The politics. It's a great question. The politics is not at all about community and the people. 100%, it is not. This when you decide to get involved with politics or public service. That's the key word, public service.
Right.
You have to always keep the people, your constituents, at their best mind. Like that's always the number one job. Now, Corey, look, in the real world, I'm not going to say that, elected officials don't take care of themselves. It happens. I'm not even mad that happens. What I'm saying is, don't take care of yourself on the backs of the people you represent.
Exactly.
Right?
I totally agree.
Represent your people, do your job, bring home the bacon, put legislation in effect that makes life better for your district, for your state, for your country. Do your job. Show to do your job. And then if you want to dip into the piggy bank, everyone's doing it. I'm not saying it's right.
Right.
I'm just saying everyone's doing it, right? But like, you cannot sacrifice your people for your personal gain.
Right.
And that can come in various ways. That's always going to be my issue with elected officials. And when elected, I don't make a lot of noise about that because there's a lot of elected officials who get in and they have marginal skill sets.
Right.
And if they don't have that job, what do they do? But that's not the people's fault.
Right.
Right? That's what, Corey, I could talk to you about this for an hour.
I know.
But
I
anyway.
love it. That's why we brought you on. All right. Should members of Congress have term limits?
No.
I can't believe you said that, but
Members of Congress shouldn't have term limits because it takes so long for you to get enough tenure in
20 years.
You can, again, go back to what we said earlier. The younger generation are bucking that system, right? They're saying it shouldn't take me 20 years to become a committee chairperson or a ranking member because Joe Blow over here.
So what's the number?
I don't
because
know. Hold on.
People are in wheelchairs.
I don't know what the number
Again, they're in wheelchairs.
I agree with you. But this is what I'll say. It is incumbent upon leadership on both sides of the aisle.
You did say that earlier.
To say to their members, hey, my man, you in wheelchairs, you're breathing through a tube. It's time to go. You got a cane. Like, it's time to go.
Right.
And so the leadership on both sides of the aisle have to be leaders.
Yes.
They have to lead their caucuses. At a certain time, you just have to say, I like you, but bro, you're done.
You're right.
Like, you're done.
Okay.
And they have to be able to say to them, either you're going to leave and retire and we're going to give you all the accoutrement that comes with that, or we're going to primary you.
Right.
We're going to get rid of you.
Okay. I'll take it. Now we're about to go into the Spitfire round.
All right. Hit me with
It's a
it.
fun game. I ask you 10 to 12 rapid fire questions. You give me one word answers, yes, no. Try not to expand too much. All right. I know you're a politician. Y'all like to talk a lot. All right. Here we go. What's one issue Democrats are getting wrong right now?
Everything.
Dang. What's one issue Republicans are getting right?
Nothing.
Should members of Congress be banned from trading individual stocks?
No, but they should be doing it with
Oversight?
oversight. They should be doing it with an investment house, and they should sort of really have a financial advisor. I couldn't think of it. They should be having a financial advisor, and they should have hands off.
Okay. So you're saying just invest the money with your financial advisor.
You have an
don't
account
touch
at
it.
Fidelity or Morgan
Right.
Stanley. Here's
Okay.
my $100,000. You do your thing.
Okay.
That's it.
Agree. Property taxes or housing affordability? Which should be your first priority if elected?
They kind of go together. Housing affordability is always going to be my answer because with housing affordability, you can move to reduce taxes.
Okay. Only Long Island got high taxes.
Yeah.
In New York City, they pay like $600 a freaking
Well, they're creeping up there.
little bit. They ain't hitting Long
No,
Island.
they're not hitting Long Island.
If you could sign only one bill into law during your first term, what would it be?
It would be to support health care for all because I know that's going to be an issue still in 2028.
Absolutely. Who's one political leader, past or present, you admire the most?
One? Only get one, Corey?
You only get one.
I would have to say Bill Clinton.
Okay. Finish this sentence. The American dream is...
Fading.
Damn, wasn't expecting that. In one word, what does Long Island need more of right now?
Active diversity.
In one sentence, why should someone who didn't vote for you still trust you to represent them in Congress?
So I'm the best candidate.
Thank you for participating in the Spitfire round.
My man.
Corey's Corner is powered by Story to Tell Productions. If you're serious about starting a podcast or taking your production to the next level, this is the team you need. Reach out to Story to Tell Productions and get it done the right way. Before we move forward, let me take you somewhere for a second. Everything we talk about on this show, power, respect, accountability, loyalty, and redemption, it's not just a conversation for me. I lived it, I earned it, I've survived it. I've seen both sides of the system. I've walked the street, I've worn the badge. I've carried the weight of decisions that could change people's lives. That's why I wrote this book, Once a Cop, The Street, the Law, Two Worlds, One Man. It's not just a book. It's the raw, unfiltered truth about the journey from the corners of Queens, New York, to the high-glass hallways of One Police Plaza, which is headquarters for the NYPD. The pressure, the politics, the purpose, the cost. In the documentary, A Cops and Robbers Story, pulls the curtain back even further. No headlines, no sound bites. Just a human story behind the uniform. Because behind every badge is a man, behind every rank is a story, and behind every story is a choice. Now a word from our sponsor.
This is not your average vodka. This is Vodkila, a decade of cultured excellence. The best of both worlds, the true taste of victory. A delicious dyad spirit, the world's finest blend of vodka and tequila. Vodkila, the perfect blend. From rooftop parties to quiet moments with friends, Vodkila brings the flavor, the fire, and the unforgettable. So pour it, share it, live it. Vodkila. Visit vodkila.net and order yours today.
You've supported both community policing and criminal justice reform. Many people believe those goals now conflict with one another. Can you realistically have both, and if so, how?
Yeah, you need community policing. I mean, I grew up in the Dinkins era. And I grew up in OV.
Safe street, safe city.
There you go. You know very well.
I'm a product.
I know you.
I'm one of the first cops.
And I'm on the other side, right?
You're on the other side, yeah.
So, I think what's lost is the beat cop knowing their community, their sector patrol.
Let me give you some pushback.
Go ahead.
Because I was a cop for a little while.
Go ahead.
I was kind of a big deal cop.
I heard. I heard about that.
So my only pushback on the beat cop is rotating him every 2 years. Because I was a cop, so I know. You have that cop there 4 or 5 years, he getting his uniform's getting cleaned for free at the cleaners. He's eating at the Chinese store for free. He ain't locking nobody up. Aunt Sue, Miss Smith's son, I agree a little bit with that.
So let me give you some pushback.
You got to move him around.
Let me give you some pushback. That's what you need. You need 2 to 4 officers on a beat that are getting to become enmeshed with a community. When I lived in Rockaway and I lived in OV, we had beat officers.
Right.
And they did these things. They came and they integrated in the community and they were in uniform and
yeah, and there was an apartment 6B too. I know that already.
The point is this: crime wasn't eradicated, but it was reduced, right? Because the criminal or the would-be criminal would say, damn, I ain't gonna do that because I know Corey, because now they know him by first name, right? I know Corey gonna be upset with me and he gonna have to hit me up because what happens is a relationship forms between cop and community, and young people who are often committing the crimes say,
by far,
I can't do this because this cop has become like an uncle to me. And what does that create? It creates a sense of accountability, where young people oftentimes, sadly, don't have fathers. And so that's what's missing in the home, in a lot of our homes, right? And so what I saw happen, and Corey, it's not a perfect program, but what I saw happen in growing up was that these cops who were black, and some white cops too, right, who just got hip, would say, okay, I remember one example where there was a cop who was a brother cop and a cop from Long Island, way out in Suffolk County. So this was like culture shock. But they were in this community for 3 years. And the white cop became more empathetic than the black cop. And he would tell the black cop, yo, man, relax. This kid has it hard. Right? And we are the hardest on each other.
Oh, I know.
Right? You know.
Oh,
I remember this white cop had made detective, And how do I know? I was at the time I was active on the community council with the 101 precinct, and I ultimately became the president of the community council. And so I had an inside view of what was going on in the precinct.
Right.
And I was very cool with the commanding officers, thankfully. And so I got a chance to see cops as people. And one of the things that I did as community council president was try to explain to young people and the community writ large that, hey, just because this guy's in a uniform, he's a dad, he's a brother, he's a son, he lives in a, right? And so I was trying to remove this sort of barrier, the job,
Right.
to make this person relatable. And what happened, again, not 100% successful, but what happened was that the community, young people, started to see some cops, not all, some cops as cool people. And the thing that's magical about that, Corey, is they know that cops have the ability to arrest them, charge them, and change their lives. Cops also, the good cops, knew that they also had that power. But with a little bit of empathy, just a little bit, not breaking the law, but just pushing it a little bit up against the stressing it, you saw some successes come out of that. You saw cops make a decision not to have a negative impact on some poor black kid's life. Huge.
I agree. I think we kind of on the same page. I'm just saying we can't have them entrenched there from a commander position. But 2 to 3 years, I totally agree. And rotate them out because they don't even need the stress to be there because there's pressure on them. Like, Gian really robbed the store. Like, but I know Gian since he was he's 12 years old. Like, he's a good kid, and I have to really lock him up. So it's a gift and a curse. But I love how you explain that. If you had continued on in a congressional race, which you was just a part of, would you support additional federal funding for law enforcement, or should the focus be on prevention and social services?
Well, law enforcement is social services. Law enforcement is prevention, right? So no, had I continued to a successful campaign, I would have absolutely supported law enforcement, particularly in Long Island. People don't live in...
Pushback.
Okay, go ahead.
It's Corey's Corner. I gotta
Go
push you
for it,
back.
brother.
Especially in law enforcement issues. What's the biggest budget in any municipality in America?
The biggest budget?
Yeah. The police.
Police. Yeah.
By far.
By far.
And so you just sitting here saying you would support additional funding for police. I hate that. I hate when people
But let
say
me tell
that.
you why, though.
Let me tell you, and then you come back.
Okay, go ahead.
All right? I'm going from you the host, I'm the guest. I'm going to answer this
No
real
problem.
quick. So, because it's the biggest budget, it's like defund the police. Whoever came up with that, I hated the term, but I understood what they were saying. It's not like, because some people think defund, they mean get rid of cops. No, it's enough wiggle room of money so we don't have to, whenever something happens with the police, they always say, give them more funding. And I say, the war on drugs. We've been doing it since the Reagan era. Right? What she said, what was her slogan? Nancy Reagan?
Just say no.
Just say no.
Yeah.
We've been doing it, right? Guess what we're doing today? The war on drugs.
Still.
You know how much money we spent?
Trillions.
Trillions. Imagine we took all of that money and actually did like treatment, counseling, education.
Now, let me give you some pushback. Like I know that will never happen.
Never.
Because the war on drugs is a farce. It's a facade. Right now, in our Long Island, quietly, there are more people dying from fentanyl than, I almost want to say...
I think it's like number one in America, right?
Right now.
Yeah.
But it's happening right here in Long Island, Nassau County, right? The difference between our communities and their communities, the black community and white communities, is that we come outside and it's sloppy with us, right? But for them, it's tucked away, it's quiet. Dad is an electrician, mom is a teacher, and Johnny is jacked up on fentanyl.
Jacked up.
Right? Keep it quiet. But they're struggling, and people are dying at a rapid pace right here in Long Island. And Corey, you're a former law enforcement highly decorated law enforcement officer. You don't think with all the money and resources we put to Just Say No drug campaign, that we couldn't stop drugs. The CIA was bringing drugs into the country for black people to use.
Oh, plug. Now I got to do a plug. Did you get a chance? Look at Crack on Netflix. Not just because I'm in it, but that's a great movie, documentary to talk about the war on drugs.
America doesn't want the war on drugs to be over. It's too profitable.
It's too profitable.
It's too profitable. Cocaine built Miami. You think about that. Cocaine built Miami. So this whole
Miami, that means you can't afford to live in.
Exactly.
South Beach.
Exactly. So this whole concept, the war on drugs, or we need to, it's nonsense. Drugs will be here. It has been here. It's going to be here. What I say is, you take a common sense approach to it. You have your law enforcement officers, and you say, "Hey, listen, when we catch you, we're gonna bang you," and that's what it is. Or if you're smart, you do your heavy drugs at home, and you do what you do at home. You know, it's I have mixed feelings on the legalization of weed. Not that I have a problem with weed, but weed is a gateway drug. It gets you. It gets
Why
people.
you think? Who you know? I don't know nobody that smoked weed and then was like, "Oh, let me go to fentanyl." Oh,
I
let
know
me try
several.
crack.
I know several people.
Oh, let me.
I know
sniff some
several
coke.
black people who started with weed and said, "Oh, let me go to ecstasy." Oh, let me. Black people don't typically do fentanyl. We don't like we
Right,
stay away
yeah,
from
we
certain
very-
things, right? But I know several black people who have gone to ecstasy and then to cocaine, and they started from weed, right? So, and they're functioning cocaine heads. Functioning.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
You wouldn't even know. So, again, but I also know several people who do weed or edibles or some variation, and that's all they do.
Right.
And they're fine with it. It curbs their, takes the buzz off. It's like our cigars, right? So I have mixed feelings about it. But more broadly, the war on drugs is foolish. We've spent so much money.
Wasted.
That money, I would argue, could have gone into the improvement of two things: healthcare and education.
And it would be more. It'll be a lot
We
better.
would have had a bigger ROI on our investment.
Yep, return on investment. So communities often complain that they're consulted but never truly heard. You've been on community boards. You ran the precinct council. Do community boards actually have meaningful influence, or are they just sometimes just a way to check a box before decisions are already made?
I would say both, and I'll tell you what I mean. So, by and large, in New York City, community boards are really irrelevant. It's a sort of a band-aid approach to sort of getting community leaders buy-in. But if a borough president wants to go around a community board, they'll go around them.
Well, they appoint them.
And they go around them when they need to, right? So, but I would say that there are always some outliers on the community boards that hold a little bit more juice than the rest of the board. And those electeds do listen. But again, Corey, to be in my answer by saying this: community boards are as powerful as the voting population. Period. If the community board is coming before ex-elected official, primarily borough president, and says, "Hey, this is what we say, or this is how we feel," and we had 200 voters at the meeting, and the rep can confirm that, and we encourage those voters to reach out to you. Guess what? The borough president's going to say, let me think about this. Right. It all comes back to, we've been taught, Corey, that there's 3 branches of government. There's actually 4 branches of government. You have the executive, you have the legislative, you have the judicial, and you have the people. And all of this is built off the people.
Yes.
And if the people don't engage, then we get what we get.
I didn't realize you studying at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy.
Yes.
Or you just got your master's from there?
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right, congratulations. Big feat, big feat. That's overseas. You was doing that overseas.
So it was a program that was started in Medford, Massachusetts, and then we concluded with our capstone project in Paris.
The capstone. Yeah. Okay. So how has studying international affairs changed the way you think about America's role in the world, especially when voters are more concerned about issues here at home?
You know, my year at Fletcher was beyond amazing. Because not only did I have amazing professors, I had equally amazing cohort of students that was also that taught.
Was it international? It was all American?
100%
The
international.
cohort.
100% international.
Okay.
Just to give you an example, we had diplomats from DR, we had a mayor from Athens, we had an ambassador from Jamaica.
Okay.
And let's just talk about Jamaica for a second. So right now, you know, Jamaica's largest trading partner is China, and America doesn't like that. America is putting pressure on Jamaica right now to abandon China, right? But with what support to replace that, right? So what I will say to you is that, you know, studying at Fletcher for that year, it didn't expand my perspective this much. It expanded it this much, because Americans, particularly Americans that don't travel, we have such a limited scope of what's happening in the world. We don't read. We don't seek out true news. We watch news entertainment, and that's what we go off of, right? This is why we got Donald Trump as president. But the world is operating at a totally different velocity, right? And, you know, when I pick up the phone and call my ambassador friend in Jamaica and say, hey, what's your perspective on this? Oh, again, you guys are really something else. This is what's going on. It's you know, what that provided, Corey, was access to global leaders, right? To hear an insider's perspective of what's happening. Now, to kind of go back to your question, you're right. Americans are very focused on what's happening domestically. But what I say to people, particularly in our district, is what's happening in the world will have an impact, if it already hasn't had an impact, on us right now. As a case in point, it's a very easy case in point. When the Straits of Hormuz closed down, what happened? Oil prices went up 20% like that. I was getting gas at Mobile on Hempstead, on Peninsula, right as you get into Hempstead, and I went from whatever, $3.89, it went to $4 and something. I'm like, what the hell is going on? What was going on was the Strait of Hormuz was being choked off, right? 20% of the oil 20% of the oil production and delivery was essentially stopped, right? But that had a direct effect on us. Now, some might argue it didn't need to go up. We had oil reserves, whatever you want to call it, right? But that event, and we don't have enough time, but that event is directly tied to the capture of Venezuela's president, right? Because the capture of Venezuela's president was really about the capture of the country's oil, right? So, and Corey, I can spend an hour just talking about international stuff, but it gave me such a global perspective about what's really happening, but also it gave me the network to plug into of my cohort to get a perspective of what's really happening from the inside.
I love it.
It was priceless.
I love it. Should the United States continue to spend billions of dollars overseas or internationally while Americans are here struggling to pay for mortgages and grocery bills?
So it just depends on what we're spending that money on. We can afford to do both. You know, the Pentagon's budget is an obscene number. You know, if we looked at the federal government's budget and was able to shave was able to redirect 15 to 20% of that budget into housing and healthcare, that would have a dramatic effect on millions of lives in America. Just housing and education. I mean, just healthcare and education, right? Or healthcare and housing. You can pick any combination of the two, right? But we don't. We're focused on corporate welfare, really, right? But America can afford to do both. And the other thing I would say is America needs to do a better job at collecting taxes from big businesses that operate in America but house their capital in other places. There's no reason
that just baffles me.
Bro, there's no reason why we can't take our $39 trillion budget and bring it down by at least $10 or $15 trillion, right? There's no reason, right? The reason is that we just don't go after these people, right? And it is incumbent upon Congress to put legislation in place that becomes law that says, hey, if you are founded in America, regardless of where you keep your capital, you have to pay a certain amount of tax, because our deficit is like $38 trillion. Like our children can't, like, who's going to resolving that?
Well, you know what? That brings us right to the next question.
Okay.
Right down the middle. You often talk about raising your son, your beautiful little son. What's the biggest fear you have for the world he'll inherit? And what's the greatest hope you have for his future?
You know, the greatest hope that I have for his future is that he can remain healthy and operate in a world that is okay, because it's not great. My greatest fear is that the world becomes much worse to navigate. I'll give you one example: climate change. You know, right here in New York, New York City, Long Island, just 48 hours ago, we had a storm that flooded the city. Now, I was oblivious to it because I live in Long Island, right? I live in Woodmere. We had no floods, but I had a friend say, "Dude, did you see the floods in New York City?" What floods? He showed me on Instagram. It's one of my greatest concerns, climate change, because, again, particularly we live on a coast, and if the world continues to get hotter, which it's doing, more and more ice will break off, more and more flooding will happen, more and more storms are happening. Right now, Corey, 24 hours ago, I read a story in, I want to say, National Geographic about the warming of the Pacific and why that's important. Particularly right now, why that's important is because it's creating moisture to create catastrophic storms that will come across the country. So that's just not good for any of us. So my son is 20 years from now, when we're older men, where will we be?
Right.
Will there be a downtown Manhattan? Right. Will there be a Long Island? Where will we be? Right.
Yeah,
imagine if the coastline imagine if our coastline shrunk by 10 or 15 miles.
That's crazy.
Because water just consumed it.
Your congressional campaign didn't end the way you hoped. Was there a specific moment when you realized the race wasn't going to go your way? And what did that experience teach you about resilience?
Yeah, I would say that there was a specific moment during the petition period where we realized that we wouldn't have the amount of signatures necessary to avoid a challenge by the Democratic county.
Right.
And so let me give the viewer some perspective. By law, a congressional candidate needs to get 1,250 valid party signatures, Democrat or Republican. So, but politically speaking, you should really come in with 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 signatures, because they're going to be trickery and games being played, right? Yeah. And so we didn't have a sufficient amount of signatures to be able to insulate against that that challenge. And so we made a decision to not file and to regroup and to look at 2028 because we are, I would say that we in our community are still largely unhappy with Laura Gillen as our member of Congress, but she will be she is the Democratic nominee.
Right.
And I will support her as such until next time.
Yes. What advice would you give to someone who's thinking about running for public office for the first time?
What advice would I give them? first I would say go for it, and then I would ask them. Well, first I would ask them why they want to do it. I want to know where their heart is, because as I've said to you, Corey, running for office has to be about the people first, right? And if said, that person, if I got a sense that person was really for the community, I would say go for it, right? Nothing beats a tribe of the fair. You look at Mayor Mandami, like, who would think that he would have won?
Yeah,
so you never know.
You never know. But nobody wanted the guy that was in the seat before him. So this was the best time to run.
It's also true.
Eric Adams.
Timing is also important.
Get the hell out of here.
Timing is also
20
important.
years from now, what do you hope your son says was your greatest accomplishment?
Being present.
Love it.
Being present.
Well, speaking about being present, there's no questions here. You're very present. You're everywhere. You remember when we first met?
I do. So I do remember when we first met. It's a great story.
This is what I knew you was a politician. Tell the people how we met.
Corey, to your credit, we met randomly at the Lid store in Roosevelt Field. I was buying another Yankee fitted, and you were buying a black hat to put your Corey Pegues branding in it. And you said, "Hey, man, I don't wear nobody else's logo no more, man. If it's not my logo, I'm not wearing it." And I said, "Okay." And so I didn't think anything of it. We dapped each other up. I didn't think I was going to see you again, and that was it. And then about a week later, you showed up at a local cigar spot, and I said, "You smoke cigars, man?" You say, "Yo, man, what's it?" And we've been friends ever since then, bro.
Ever since then,
and that's been about 5 or 6 years.
Maybe a little more than that.
It's longer than that.
It might be longer than that. But great minds think alike. I could feel. I'm a people's person, so I could feel your energy. Seemed like a good guy, and you thought that I was absolutely crazy. You was like, "Yo, what you doing with the black hat?" I'm like, "Yo, I ain't wearing nobody else's logo." Why? I'm like, "You buying a Yankee hat? Why you buying that hat for $45? You can put your own logo on it."
Yeah, and look, here you are, bro. Like, you've been rocking this way for years.
Yeah,
and I love that.
And that was the beginning of me doing the logo thing.
Yeah,
because when I went to Liz, I went to get a Yankee hat, and it was $50.
Yeah,
and I was like, "Damn."
Yeah.
How much to put my logo on there? And they was like $38. So I was like, "Oh, no more Yankee hats for me."
Yeah.
The irony in this is I got about 50 Yankee hats at my house, zipped up in this hat box that I'll never wear. But collect this.
Yeah.
Listen, this show is about authenticity. Cameras off, microphone off, campaign over. Who is Gian Jones when nobody's watching?
I'm a cool guy, man. I'm very chill. I love business. I love helping people. I'm a cigar smoker, avid cigar smoker. And at this point in my life, I'm really just about relaxing and just chilling. I love business and real estate, and I'm working on a 160-acre development in Connecticut, where I look hopefully to develop 500 apartments, 100 units for seniors, and a robust commercial component. I'm a business person. I'm a developer. I'm a real estate guy, But I use my personal life to influence my politics. Right? There's no separation. There's no silos. I do this, and then that turns off. I'm a dad. I'm a son. My mom is aging. She has heart disease, so we're dealing with that. I'm a kid from Rockaway who's kind of made it, right? That's it, man. No frills.
I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap?
Nah, man, this was great. I'm glad we finally made this. I would tell everybody who is listening to this, wherever you are, New York or other places, vote. Bring your voice to the voting booth whenever you can, as often as you can. Participate in your local elections because your vote matters. If you're tired of your elected officials, vote them out. Get involved, stay engaged. That's it.
And looking at camera, and tell the people about 2028.
Yeah, so in 2028, we're going to run a dynamic campaign for Congress to replace Laura Gillen in New York's 4th Congressional District. We're going to take the lessons learned and we're going to implement them. And upon the success of my campaign to Congress, we're going to create some lasting impacts in the 4th Congressional District.
Appreciate that. Again, thank you for taking time to pull up,
Yeah,
seat
man.
up on Corey's Corner. We appreciate your openness, your willingness to answer tough questions, and your commitment to serving your community through business, civic engagement, and public leadership. Today you gave us a deeper look beyond the resume, from your upbringing in a single-parent household to your success in business, your years of public service, and your perspective on leadership and opportunity. Thank you for sharing your journey with us, and we wish you continued success in all that comes next. My brother,
Thank
you
you,
know, I only bring people on that I really admire, and I've been admiring you since the day we met. We
I
just
appreciate that.
clicked. And you're a good dude, man. I'm rooting for you. There's been many politicians you and I know that ran several times. But it's like everything else in life. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah, you're right.
Everybody want to do a 50-yard dash, but nobody want to do 26.5 miles.
Yeah.
Keep running the marathon. The time is here.
I appreciate
got
you,
it.
brother.
Thanks again
brother.
for pulling up.
Of course, man. Definitely, man.
My brother.
Peace and love, Corey.
For our listeners, if you found value in today's episode, make sure you follow, subscribe, and support. This has been another episode of Corey's Corner. Until next time, keep pushing, keep grinding. Always remember, it's not about where you start. It's always about where you finish. I'm Corey Pegues, and I always keep it right, not real. Peace.
Once a cop, let it knock, yeah. I for one thing we should celebrate redemption instead of condemning it. Corey Pegues, up, talking truth, bruh. Check it out. Once a cop, I used to